Nia Langston's perfect test score stares back at her like an accusation she never expected. The quiet dismissals in the classroom, the chilly nods from the crossing guard on her way to school, and the whispered doubts of her classmates replayed in her mind as she braced herself for what was to come. Each moment built upon the last, a subtle reminder of the invisible barriers she had navigated her entire life. Now, in the bright fluorescent light of Crestwood Middle School's math classroom, those silent judgments had taken shape in the form of Ms. Harper's sharp gaze, fixed not on the lesson, but on the paper clutched in Nia's hands. Nia had always known that her brilliance came with a price. Being the granddaughter of a distinguished mathematician had not shielded her from the harsh realities of prejudice, nor had it erased the skepticism she encountered daily. Today, however, that skepticism had grown louder, more pointed, and yet, beneath the weight of it all, Nia's spirit remained unbroken. The classroom buzzed with an uneasy energy as Ms. Harper moved deliberately between desks, handing back quizzes with varying degrees of praise. She paused in front of Jason, the white boy who had struggled just weeks before, offering an encouraging smile and a good improvement. At Mackenzie's desk, a quiet, nice job was enough to draw a small grin. But when Ms. Harper reached Nia, the room fell silent. The usual casual atmosphere evaporated, replaced by a heavy tension that settled on every shoulder. With a slow, almost theatrical motion, Ms. Harper held Nia's quiz aloft for the entire class to see. The bright red 100% blazed like a target, marking her not as a star pupil, but as an anomaly too unsettling to ignore. "Miss Langston," Ms. Harper's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "Would you care to explain how you managed to score a perfect 100% on every question, including the bonus problem that none of your classmates even attempted?" Nia's fingers tightened around the edges of the quiz, her heartbeat echoing louder than her voice. "I studied," she said softly, the words barely carrying over the sudden hush. She could feel the weight of 24 pairs of eyes locked on her, some curious, some doubtful, others openly hostile. The crosswalk outside had greeted the white students by name that morning, a smile and a wave exchanged as they passed. Nia had received only a nod, curt and distant. The echoes of that moment lingered still, a subtle but persistent reminder that her presence was tolerated, never welcomed. Now, in this classroom, her excellence was met not with celebration, but suspicion. Ms. Harper's lips curled into a thin, unforgiving line. "Studied?" she echoed. Or did you have outside help?" "Because, Miss Langston, no student in my 22 years of teaching has ever achieved consistent, perfect scores without assistance. I want you to admit that you cheated." The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as Nia's chest tightened with the sting of injustice. "I didn't cheat," she repeated, voice firmer now, but still calm. "I understood the material." Ms. Harper's eyes flashed with something colder, more dangerous. "Officer Daniels," she called without looking away. "Please escort Miss Langston to Principal Morgan's office immediately." The sound of Officer Daniels's shoes squeaking on the linoleum floor was the final punctuation on Nia's public shaming. As the security guard approached, Nia gathered her belongings with hands that trembled just enough to betray her nerves. Behind her, whispered conversations erupted. "I knew something was off about her. She finally got caught. There's no way she's that smart." The corridor stretched endlessly ahead as Nia walked, each step echoing her growing sense of isolation. The principal's office loomed like a tribunal, its door open but uninviting. Principal Morgan sat behind his polished desk, the glow of his computer screen illuminating an email from Ms. Harper accusing Nia of academic dishonesty. He did not offer a chair. "Your teacher has serious concerns about cheating," he began bluntly. This is not the first time she's noted statistically improbable performance from you. Nia's protests felt small against the weight of institutional doubt. "I didn't cheat," she said again, her voice hollowing. Would anyone truly believe her? The principal steepled his fingers. "Due process will be followed. You will be given the chance to prove your innocence in a public verification test this Friday. Pass, and the allegations will be withdrawn. Fail, and you face expulsion. You are suspended until then. Officer Daniels will escort you off campus." As the guard led her away, Nia caught the cold smirk on Ms. Harper's face, a look that said victory was already hers. At home, the worn scent of pine and aged wood greeted Nia as she entered the modest apartment she shared with her mother, Lorraine. The chessboard, its surface scarred with years of play, sat prominently on the coffee table, an unspoken connection to her grandfather's enduring legacy. Lorraine, exhausted from a 12-hour nursing shift, sat quietly but upright, a steadfast presence. "You're twice as smart as any of them," Lorraine whispered, brushing a stray curl from Nia's forehead. "Just like your grandfather was. They just aren't ready to see it yet." Nia clutched the carved knight her grandfather had given her years before, a talisman against doubt. She had spent countless afternoons playing chess online under the anonymous moniker Queen Undercover, outmaneuvering opponents twice her age and skill level. Yet here, in the daylight, her true self was under siege. Lorraine's fingers trembled as she prepared to fight not just for Nia's innocence, but for her dignity. The system was rigged, the rules unclear, and the stakes higher than a simple test score. But she would not let her daughter stand alone. That night, the soft hum of the city outside mixed with the quiet tapping of keys as Nia scoured news articles, school board minutes, and district policies. The story was larger than a single accusation. It was a pattern of exclusion, a deliberate shaping of narratives to fit comfortable demographics. As the clock edged toward 2 a.m, a new message blinked on Nia's screen from an unknown user named Night Defender. The advice was clear and haunting. Sometimes the best move isn't on the board, but in changing how your opponent perceives the game. Nia's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The fight ahead would demand more than knowledge. It would require strategy, resilience, and allies she could barely imagine. The perfect test score still lay on her desk, staring back like a challenge. But Nia was ready to change the game itself. The school auditorium buzzed with an undercurrent of tension that seemed to seep into every corner of the large room. Folding chairs were arranged in neat rows, facing a long table where stacks of test materials lay, ready to be distributed. The familiar smell of polished wood and faint traces of chalk dust mingled with the crisp scent of new paper. Outside, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Crestwood Middle School campus, but inside, the atmosphere was heavy and suffocating, a stark contrast to the warmth of the fading day. Nia sat quietly at a small desk placed deliberately in the center of the room, her hands folded on the tabletop. Her mother, Lorraine, was seated discreetly among a small group of observers, her eyes never leaving her daughter's face. The presence of district educational equity officers and a handful of researchers was a subtle but powerful reminder that this was no ordinary test. The stakes were monumental. This was not simply a challenge of intellect, but a battle to reclaim dignity against a system built to exclude. Ms. Harper paced near the back, her posture rigid, a forced calm in her eyes betraying the storm beneath. She glanced repeatedly at the clock on the wall, the seconds ticking down like an audible countdown to inevitable defeat. Principal Morgan hovered nearby, his fingers tapping nervously against the polished surface of the auditorium table, casting furtive glances toward the assembled observers. Nia's mind drifted for a moment to the chessboard that awaited her at home, worn but steadfast like the legacy it represented. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory, urging patience, foresight, and strategy. This test was more than a measure of knowledge. It was a chess match, a contest of wills disguised as academic rigor. The test materials were handed out with calculated precision. The initial questions delved into complex literary analysis, passages filled with layered metaphors and historical allusions that even many adults would find challenging. Naya read carefully, parsing each sentence with the steady focus that had become her hallmark. Ms. Harper's voice cut through the silence 20 minutes in, an unspoken challenge laced in her words. "You need to move faster," she urged, leaning close, her tone sharp as a scalpel. Nia met her gaze evenly. "The guidelines allow me the full time. I will use it as I see fit." A ripple of murmurs coursed through the observers seated at the back, their expressions shifting from curiosity to a growing respect as they watched Naya navigate each question with quiet confidence. The science section followed, questions probing concepts well beyond the usual middle school curriculum: quantum physics theories, genetic mutations, and ecological modeling, all areas where Nia's preparation and intellect shone through. Principal Morgan's foot tapped anxiously beneath the table as the clock crept forward, while Lorraine clenched her hands, steadying herself for the moments yet to come. Dr. Malcolm Reed sat near the observers, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the simmering tension. Occasionally, he glanced at his tablet, reviewing documents that corroborated the growing evidence of systemic bias that Naya and her mother had uncovered. The history portion was a labyrinth of intricate timelines, obscure figures, and socio-political analyses. Nia's pen danced across the page, every stroke deliberate, her notes meticulous. She could feel the invisible eyes watching, the weight of expectation pressing down, but she refused to yield to it. Each answer was a silent assertion of her rightful place in this arena. Nearing the end of the 90-minute mark, Ms. Harper's face grew flushed, her composure fraying as she watched Nia's steady progress. The mathematics section was delivered last, a gauntlet of calculus problems and theoretical equations designed to overwhelm. But Nia had anticipated this. Her grandfather's book, marked with notes and scribbles, had prepared her well. As she worked through each problem, her mind remained sharp, connecting abstract concepts with elegant logic. Every step was documented, her process laid bare for all to scrutinize. The final problem was unlike any before a complex chess puzzle projected onto a large screen. Its pieces scattered in an arrangement that seemed chaotic to the untrained eye. Ms. Harper's voice, strained and almost triumphant, announced, "This is an advanced problem from collegiate competition. No one who simply memorized answers could solve it without a deep understanding of strategy." Naya's lips curled into a faint smile. This was her moment. She raised her hand, requesting to solve the problem on a physical chessboard rather than on paper, a move that startled the room into silence. Principal Morgan hesitated but ultimately consented, and moments later, a wooden chess set was brought forward, its polished pieces gleaming under the harsh auditorium lights. With deliberate calm, Naya arranged the pieces to mirror the projected position. The sound of each piece meeting the board was a steady drumbeat in the charged quiet. Her fingers traced familiar patterns, each move a step toward checkmate. 19 moves ahead, she explained softly, anticipating every counterplay. Toaxom. She moved the white knight with purpose, announcing, "Knight to f5, threatening the queen and unleashing a discovered check from the bishop." The audience leaned forward as she guided the game, revealing a sequence of sacrifices and maneuvers that culminated in an elegant checkmate. Turning toward Ms. Harper, Naya's voice carried to every corner of the auditorium. "This problem is known as the Professor's Gambit. It was created by my grandfather, Dr. Langston." The teacher's face paled, a flicker of disbelief crossing her eyes. Dr. Malcolm Reed stood, affirming, "I can confirm this chess problem was indeed authored by Dr. Langston, a distinguished professor of mathematics and chess theory. His legacy is well documented." A murmur spread through the crowd as Naya placed her grandfather's worn knight piece on the board, completing the final move. Cameras flashed. The room held its breath. This was more than a test. It was an unveiling. The struggle to define Naya's abilities had culminated in undeniable proof: her brilliance, her lineage, and the glaring flaws of the system that had sought to suppress her. The room fell into a stunned silence that seemed to stretch on indefinitely. Every eye was fixed on the chessboard where Naya Langston had just completed the final, decisive move. The worn knight, the very piece that had traveled through decades of family history, now rested on the board as a symbol of quiet strength and unyielding legacy. The polished wood reflected the harsh glare of the auditorium lights, illuminating not only the game, but the profound truth it represented. Ms. Harper's face drained of color, her earlier confidence replaced by a creeping realization of defeat. She had carefully orchestrated this verification test to confirm her suspicions, to uphold a narrative of control. Yet here stood an 11-year-old girl dismantling that narrative with grace and unassailable skill. Principal Morgan shifted uneasily in his seat, his usual authoritative demeanor wavering as the weight of public scrutiny settled over him like a heavy fog. Dr. Malcolm Reed rose from his chair, stepping forward with the quiet authority of a scholar who had witnessed too many battles fought in silence. His voice cut through the charged atmosphere, steady and resolute. "What you have just witnessed is not merely a test of knowledge," he began, "but an exposure of a deeply rooted injustice. This chess problem, known as the Professor's Gambit, was created by Dr. Langston, Naya's grandfather and my esteemed mentor. It is a symbol of intellectual mastery, strategy, and foresight, a legacy that has been dismissed and disregarded until now." He gestured toward the auditorium's back row, where district educational equity officers exchanged knowing glances and made meticulous notes. "The data we have gathered over nearly a decade shows a troubling pattern. Qualified minority students systematically excluded from gifted and talented programs, their achievements minimized or outright denied. This is not an isolated incident, but a manifestation of institutional bias entrenched in policies and practices." Ms. Harper attempted a faltering defense. "The verification test was designed to be rigorous, to ensure academic standards are maintained. The advanced questions, including university-level material, were necessary to distinguish true mastery from rote memorization." Dr. Reed's eyes sharpened, his tone unwavering. "Teaching college-level mathematics to an 11-year-old during a middle school assessment is not rigorous pedagogy, it is a calculated barrier. A barrier designed to guarantee failure and uphold a status quo that privileges some while excluding others." A murmur rippled through the crowd as teachers exchanged uncomfortable glances, some nodding subtly in agreement. Lorraine Langston sat rigidly in the front row, her hands clenched tightly, pride and exhaustion mingling in her expression. She caught Nia's eye and offered a small, encouraging smile, an unspoken bond forged through years of struggle. Reporters' cameras clicked relentlessly, capturing every moment as the truth unfolded before them. The power dynamic that had once seemed unassailable now trembled on the edge of collapse. Principal Morgan cleared his throat, attempting to regain control, but the damage was done. On behalf of Crestwood Middle School, he offered a formal apology. "We recognize the flaws in our processes and are committed to implementing immediate reforms. Naya Langston will be placed in the gifted and talented program, and her academic record will be corrected to reflect her true abilities." The offer hung in the air, a hastily applied bandage over a deeper systemic wound. Naya's gaze swept over the room, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside her. "This isn't just about me," she said. "What about the others who were pushed out or overlooked? What about the next student who dares to be more?" Ms. Harper lowered her eyes, defeated. From the back, a tall woman rose, Regina Waters, the district's educational equity officer. "Nia makes a compelling point," she said firmly. "Individual accommodations are not enough. We must address the institutional failures that allowed this to happen. A full audit of placement decisions, a revision of verification protocols, and comprehensive bias training for staff will be initiated immediately." Lorraine stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Nia's shoulder. "We don't want special treatment for Nia. We want fairness and opportunity for every student, regardless of background or skin color." The room absorbed her words, the tension easing into a cautious hope. Dr. Reed nodded approvingly. "This moment is a beginning, not an end." Outside, the afternoon sun cast a golden glow through the windows, illuminating the faces of those who had come to bear witness. The long fight for justice had taken a decisive step forward, propelled by the quiet strength of a young girl who refused to be diminished. But as the crowd dispersed, the question lingered in the air like a challenge waiting to be met. How many others would still face the same battle? How many more moves must be played before the game itself was truly changed? The story was far from over. 3 months had passed since the quiet auditorium had witnessed Nia Langston's triumphant checkmate, a moment that rippled far beyond the polished chessboard. Now, under the warm glow of a spring afternoon, the very same school district auditorium bore a new plaque beside the podium, its polished brass lettering declaring, "Educational Equity Initiative, established 2025. The room hummed with anticipation, filled with an audience that was markedly different from the one that had gathered months before. This time, faces of every shade and background filled the seats, a testament to the change that had begun to take root. Nia stood confidently behind the podium, the weight of the moment settling over her like a mantle. The soft murmur of the crowd faded as she began to speak, her voice steady and warm, carrying the hard-earned authority of someone who had navigated a labyrinth of injustice and emerged not only unbroken, but empowered. "This initiative," she said, "is about more than just policy. It is about recognizing potential wherever it appears, without prejudice or assumption." The spotlight highlighted the faint glint of the queen chess piece resting beside her notes, a gift from Dr. Malcolm Reed, symbolizing new beginnings and the power of strategy. Around her, the faces of community leaders, educators, and students reflected hope and resolve. Lorraine Langston, seated near the front, watched with pride etched deeply into her features. Her journey from exhausted nurse fighting a battle on 2 fronts to a tireless advocate for fairness had been arduous, but meaningful. Beside her, Dr. Reed observed with a quiet smile, knowing that the seeds they had planted were beginning to flourish. The program on the stage unfolded with stories of students from diverse backgrounds stepping into advanced classes for the first time, of blind evaluation protocols removing the shadows of bias, and of multiple pathways emerging to demonstrate aptitude beyond traditional tests. Nia's voice wove through the narrative, emphasizing collaboration, opportunity, and dignity. After the formal speeches, the scene shifted to the school's chess club, a once quiet corner now alive with energy and laughter. Children of every background sat side by side, tackling problems and encouraging one another. Nia knelt beside a hesitant 6-year-old girl named Deja Williams, watching as the child carefully moved a pawn forward. "Perfect," Nia encouraged softly. "You're thinking ahead. That's what makes a great player and a great learner." The club room buzzed with the sounds of collaboration. the clatter of chess pieces punctuating excited conversations. It was a microcosm of the broader changes sweeping through Crestwood, a place where competition gave way to community, where differences were celebrated as strengths. Meanwhile, in the quiet administrative offices across town, Lorraine reviewed materials for a new nursing education program. The district settlement had included a full scholarship for her to complete her long-postponed master's degree, allowing her to balance school and home life. The Langston Educational Justice Scholarship, named in honor of Naya's grandfather, stood as a symbol of hope for parents determined to break cycles of exclusion. Outside the school district, the Metropolitan News had published a powerful 6-part investigative series, inspired by Naya's case, exposing educational tracking disparities across the state. Other districts had begun to implement similar blind evaluation systems, reporting increased diversity in advanced programs without sacrificing academic rigor. Within Crestwood, the once contested halls had softened. Ms. Harper had been reassigned to curriculum development, a role designed to utilize her skills without direct influence over student evaluations. Principal Morgan remained, but under the watchful eye of Dr. Reed, who now conducted regular bias training sessions. One afternoon, Nia sat in a sunlit corner of the chess club, passing the worn knight chess piece around a circle of eager hands. "Remember," she said, "this piece represents more than strategy. It stands for resilience, for every underestimated mind that refused to be silenced." The knight passed from hand to hand, its surface smoothed by countless touches, enriched by stories of courage and determination. Finally, it returned to Nia's palm, now a symbol of collective strength rather than solitary struggle. Dr. Reed approached, his eyes shining with pride. "Your grandfather would be proud, Nia, not just of what you've accomplished, but of the doors you've opened for others." As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the windows, Nia reflected on the journey. The true victory was not the moment she proved Ms. Harper wrong, nor the reforms etched into policy documents. It was the transformation of a system once designed to exclude, now learning to recognize brilliance wherever it blossomed. In chess, as in life, the most powerful move is often the one that changes the entire board. And Nia Langston had done just that. The worn knight chess piece felt smooth and familiar in Nia Langston's palm, its edges softened from years of handling, yet its significance had only deepened. It was no longer just a talisman of her grandfather's legacy. It was a symbol shared among a new generation of young minds discovering their own strength and brilliance. The community center's chess club meeting room buzzed softly with quiet concentration and tentative excitement. Children gathered in small groups, their faces a tapestry of backgrounds and stories, each one eager to learn and grow. Nia moved among them with the ease of someone who had walked this path before. Her voice was gentle but firm as she encouraged a 6-year-old girl wrestling with her first chess challenge. "Remember what we practiced. Think 2 moves ahead what could happen next?" The child's eyes brightened, a flicker of understanding sparking beneath her brows. "Perfect," Nia said with a smile. "You're seeing the consequences of each move. That's what makes a great player and a great thinker." Across the room, the energy was different from the tense silence of the verification test months earlier. Here, collaboration replaced competition. Ideas flowed freely, mistakes were stepping stones, and every success was shared. The diversity of the students mirrored the hopeful transformation rippling through Crestwood's schools. Nia's chess club had become a microcosm of a larger change, where doors once closed were now opening. Dr. Malcolm Reed sat nearby, quietly observing as students challenged themselves and each other. His expression held a mixture of pride and quiet satisfaction. "You've done more than build a club," he told Nia later. You've created a sanctuary where brilliance is nurtured, not judged by the color of a name or the assumptions of others." Lorraine Langston entered the room, her face reflecting the steady determination that had carried her through long nights and fierce battles. She carried a stack of application forms for the Langston Educational Justice Scholarship, a program she had helped establish to support parents pursuing education alongside their children's growth. "This isn't just about Naya anymore," she said. "It's about every family that's ever felt pushed to the margins." Nia nodded, her eyes scanning the room filled with eager learners. "The real victory isn't just changing policies, it's changing lives." Outside the school district, momentum built. Other districts had begun adopting blind evaluation programs modeled on Crestwood's reforms. Early reports showed a dramatic increase in diversity within advanced programs without sacrificing academic excellence. The Metropolitan News investigative series had sparked statewide conversations about educational equity, shining light on long-ignored disparities. Back inside the chess club, Nia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The initial accusation of cheating, the grueling verification test, the public reckoning, it all felt like pieces on a grand chessboard, each move carefully calculated, each sacrifice purposeful. But the most important lesson her grandfather had taught her was that true intelligence was not only about solving problems, but transforming the systems that defined those problems. The worn knight passed from hand to hand among the students, each one holding a piece of the legacy, each one empowered to make their next move. Nearby, Dr. Reed handed Nia a gleaming queen chess piece, a gift symbolizing the power and responsibility she now carried. "You've changed the game," he said softly. Nia looked around at the hopeful faces, her heart swelling with quiet pride. The fight was far from over, but with every child inspired, every barrier broken, she knew the future held promise. The room grew still as Naya gathered the children close. "Your mind is the most powerful piece on the board," she said. "Never let anyone tell you otherwise." And as the evening sun cast golden light through the windows, the worn knight rested once more in her palm, its story richer, its meaning profound. The game had changed forever. Worn smooth from countless hands, the knight chess piece rested once again in Nia Langston's palm, its significance richer than ever. This piece was no longer just a symbol of her grandfather's legacy. It had become a shared emblem of resilience, hope, and empowerment among a new generation of young minds eager to claim their place in the world. Inside the community center's chess club, children of all backgrounds gathered in clusters, their faces alive with concentration and curiosity. The room buzzed with quiet enthusiasm as Naya moved gracefully among them, offering gentle encouragement and guiding hesitant players through the intricate dance of strategy and foresight. "Think ahead," she told a young boy struggling with his first match. "Every move changes what comes next." The atmosphere was one of collaboration rather than competition. Laughter mingled with thoughtful silence as players learned from mistakes and celebrated small victories together. The once exclusive, guarded world of advanced learning had opened its doors wide, embracing diversity and the strength found in different perspectives. Seated nearby, Dr. Malcolm Reed observed with quiet pride. "You've created more than a club," he said softly to Naya after the session. "You've built a community where every child's potential can grow, unhindered by bias or fear." Lorraine Langston entered carrying a pile of scholarship applications funds established in honor of Dr. Langston's lifelong fight for justice. "This is for parents who want better for their children, who fight to break cycles," she said with determination. "Our struggle is bigger than Naya. It's every family seeking fairness." Nia nodded, eyes scanning the hopeful faces before her. Change isn't just about rules on paper, she said. It's about lifting each other up. Beyond Crestwood, the story inspired other districts to adopt blind evaluation policies, diversifying advanced programs without sacrificing excellence. Investigative reports brought long-hidden disparities into the light, sparking statewide reforms and conversations about equity and opportunity. Back in the club, the worn knight was passed from hand to hand, connecting generations through touch and story. Dr. Reed presented Nia with a shining queen chess piece, symbolizing the power and responsibility she now held. "You've transformed the game," he said with a smile. As sunlight filtered through the windows, Nia gathered the children close. "Your mind is your greatest piece on the board," she said. "Never let anyone tell you otherwise." The knight rested once more in her palm, its story now one of shared strength and limitless possibility. The game had changed forever. The journey of Nia Langston is a testament to the quiet strength that can emerge in the face of deep-seated injustice. From the moment she was accused of cheating an accusation not born out of evidence, but out of bias, and a system's desperate need to preserve a comfortable narrative, she stood firm. Her perfect scores, her intellect, her very presence challenged a status quo that was designed to keep people like her unseen, unheard, and underestimated. But Nia's story is not just one of individual brilliance. It is a reflection of a broader struggle faced by countless others whose talents have been obscured by prejudice disguised as policy. Throughout this story, we witnessed the slow, often painful unraveling of a system built on exclusion. Ms. Harper, a figure representing both personal bias and institutional pressure, was not merely acting out of malice, but was a cog in a larger machine that measured success through a narrow demographic lens. Principal Morgan's initial complicity was indicative of how power often chooses preservation over justice, how bureaucracy can perpetuate harm under the guise of fairness. Yet, even in the darkest moments of accusation and isolation, Nia carried a quiet dignity that refused to be diminished. Her mother, Lorraine, embodied the fierce, unwavering allyship so vital in the fight against systemic bias. The sacrifices she made, balancing grueling shifts while advocating for her daughter, remind us that resilience is often a family affair. Dr. Malcolm Reed's mentorship and public support illustrated the profound impact allies have when they choose to speak truth to power and lend their voice to those who have been silenced. Together, their courage sparked a reckoning, not only exposing the injustice inflicted upon one young girl, but illuminating the cracks in a system that had for too long favored convenience over equity. The public verification test became a stage not just for proving academic ability, but for revealing the institutional barriers that sought to trap Nia and others like her. The advanced chess problem, crafted by her grandfather and used unwittingly to challenge her, became a powerful metaphor. It demonstrated that brilliance is not accidental or luck, but a product of preparation, heritage, and perseverance. More importantly, it showed that the systems designed to exclude can be outmaneuvered by those who refuse to play by unfair rules. What followed was not merely a personal victory, but a call for systemic change. The establishment of the Educational Equity Initiative, the rise of inclusive programs, and the creation of scholarship opportunities were milestones on a path toward justice. These reforms acknowledge that genuine human respect cannot be reduced to statistics or funding quotas. It requires the dismantling of biases and the creation of environments where every child's potential is recognized and nurtured. This story also reminds us of the immense courage required to confront not just individuals, but entrenched systems. Speaking out against bias is rarely easy, especially when the forces aligned against change are powerful and deeply rooted. It is the courage of the protagonist to stand firm in her truth, of the allies to amplify that truth, and even the moments when bystanders choose not silence, but action, that together forge progress. Yet, the battle for justice is never fully won in a single moment. The shadows of exclusion linger, and the work to expand opportunity and fairness is ongoing. Naya's legacy is not just in what she achieved for herself, but in how she opened doors for those who will follow. She transformed what could have been a story of despair into one of hope, resilience, and communal strength. The core moral lessons echo throughout this narrative. Superficial policies that ignore the lived realities of prejudice serve only to perpetuate inequality. Genuine human respect requires recognizing each person's dignity, intelligence, and right to opportunity regardless of race or background. It takes relentless courage to challenge the comfortable narratives that systems tell themselves, but it is that very courage, quiet, steadfast, unwavering, that can change the course of institutions and lives. As we reflect on Nia's journey, we are reminded that justice is not an abstract ideal, but a daily practice. It is found in the refusal to accept assumptions, in the courage to speak when others remain silent, and in the collective will to build systems that honor everyone's potential. The story speaks to all who have ever been underestimated, who have faced barriers unseen but deeply felt, and to those who choose to stand with them. Philosophy remains. True power lies not in dominance, but in transforming the rules of the game to create fairness for all. If this story moved you, if you believe in the fight for dignity against prejudice, please leave a comment with the number 1. Subscribe to our channel to hear the next story that shines a light on courage, resilience, and justice. Together, we can witness and share the stories that change the world.